Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel, and this episode is brought to you by PCBWay, but more about them later. So today I've got no special guests at all. My last 2 weeks have actually flown by, and usually I come here and talk to you mostly about my everyday life, but not today. I can come here and talk to you about my YouTube channel because that's what I've been working on for the last 2 weeks or so. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, I have spent just over 21 hours live streaming my productivity sessions where I sort of brainstormed, worked on, recorded, prototyped, and chatted with chat everything about the YouTube channel, basically. So as I worked on my YouTube channel, I was live on my second channel, which you can find a link in the description. I'll put it in the show notes or the description of this podcast. And it's been phenomenal. I've really enjoyed hanging out with some of the most dedicated folks to subscribe to my channel. Because you folks are awesome. So we're going to chat a little bit about sort of what I've been working on, what kind of videos I put out. I think I put out 6 to my Patreon. One of them has gone live already, but I have a couple that I need to edit still, and a whole bunch to film, which will come in future live streams. So the first thing I want to talk about is I think the most entertaining video, the most interesting video that I've worked on over on the live stream channel is the cheap Fluke multimeter unboxing and roundup. So the plan is to grab a whole bunch of these cheap Flukes. So I have them now. So it's the Fluke 101, the 15B Plus, the 17B Plus, and the 18B Plus. These are all extremely inexpensive Fluke multimeters. I think the most expensive one is just under $200, maybe under $150. I don't 100% remember. I did order these a long time ago. But the goal is to go through and test them all. I mean, the eventual plan is to put them all on the multimeter gauntlet and compare them one to another and feature sets and all this stuff. But that's going to come in a later video. The video that I just filmed, though, is an unboxing of all 4 of them. And for what it's worth, I was quite impressed with some of them, I'll have to say. So the Fluke 101 is really the one that always gets recommended when it's kind of like a new person is looking for a cheap but high-quality multimeter. But the problem is it is tiny. It's very small. It's very uncomfortable in the palm of my hands. It's I think it's smaller than the ANEG 8008, which is already a small multimeter, but the ANEG has a way bigger screen on it. The digits are way bigger. The Fluke 101 has, the screen looks big, but the digits are absolutely tiny. And on top of that, the 101 has the leads coming in from the bottom instead of regular, from the front face. And that has the unfortunate consequence of also meaning there's no tilting bail on the multimeter. So like in my line of work, when you're taking, measurements and you need the multimeter propped up because you need both your hands on the leads to take measurements, it's just not working. You can't just have it laying down. You might not always see it. So I would say the 101 for me is a pass, but surprisingly, the 15B, the 17B, and the 18B, they all seem like relatively good candidates in order to buy a multimeter. And in fact, the 17B Plus at this point seems to be my decision, the one I would recommend. Now, I have not tested them yet, right? I just unboxed them, took a look at them, gave them a little 1-2. And for right now, it seems like the 17B Plus is in the position where I think I would be recommending that one to someone who wanted a cheap Fluke. Just looking quickly on AliExpress, it seems like the 17B Plus Fluke can be had for about 140, 150 Canadian dollars. So I think that's pretty good price. 157. So yeah, it's a not cheap, I would say. It's still a Fluke. That's what you have to keep in mind. It's not cheap, but it seems to be quite reasonable for what it is. So the first things you'll notice when you pull it out of the box is it's quite hefty. It's very strong and tough, sort of like the North American flukes we have here. The screen is big and bright. It seems like you have all the features you need, current up to 10 amps, but down in the milliamp range. In fact, I believe, I don't have them in front of me, but I believe the 17B has microamp range as well. It's got a backlight, it's got a hold, it's got second function buttons, stuff like that. It's lacking, I think the 17 is the one that has the min-max. Let me just make sure here. I want to check because this was all recorded a few days ago. Yeah. So it has the relative measurement button. It's got the min-max and average function. So I think the 17B Plus, and it has temperature function, which the 15 doesn't. So I think the 17B Plus is probably going to be my recommendation, but this is all before testing. So keep that in mind. And actually, it'll be quite interesting to look back once the testing is done in order to see if I stick by my opinion or if my opinion has changed. I mean, maybe the 15 and the 18 are way more precise. Who knows? One thing I will tell you about these cheap flukes, though, is that the leads are absolute trash feeling. So the leads are very hard, not very flexible. They have these caps for the Cat 4 rating that go on, but that are very, very loose. So, when you're in tight spots, you can knock them off pretty easily. And if you're expecting not to short anything out, that could be a very big problem. So keep that in mind. The 17B definitely comes with a temperature sensor, which is good, temperature probe. But yeah, the test leads seem like absolute trash. I may need to do a separate test on the test leads. So now is the question of why I haven't done the testing yet. Because you think it should be pretty simple, right? You just put it through the multimeter gauntlet, collect all the data, record a video about my opinions on the multimeters. However, it's not that simple. And the reason it's not that simple is because an actual fluke is in the neighborhood of $500-600 Canadian, maybe $800, $1,000 Canadian, depending on which one you buy. And if the only thing that sets the usability of these cheap multimeters, aside from those good multimeters, is the test leads, especially if you're an American, would it be worth it to get a cheap fluke and get expensive test leads? Well, I don't know any expensive test leads except for the Probe Masters. So there's a company called Probe Masters in the US who have these excellent test leads. They're very well rated on the EEV blog forum, which I think is a fairly good place to get your recommendations from. They're gold plated, they're sharp, the wires are flexible, and their cat rating holds, because that's another important thing. Is you if you're buying something like a fluke, it's because you want to trust in the cat rating, the safety ratings of the multimeter. And so, is it a true test if I don't test with a good set of leads? And in my opinion, and the opinion of people who are watching on the live stream and chatting, is that no, the test probably should be done with a good quality set of test leads. So here is the plan. I have reached out to Probe Masters. I didn't ask for anything for free. I don't think they need to appease me by sending me anything. So it is what it is. But when I went onto their website to order these test leads, which I believe are like $20, Probe Masters. I'm just going to want to make sure here. Probe Master, yeah. And then multimeter test leads. You're doing this with me, folks, so bear with me. The 8000 series. So it's $24.50 American. which I'm fine with. I'm completely good with that. What I'm not good with is that the shipping is like $36. Let's see, proceed to checkout. Let's just make sure here. Pretty sure the shipping is $36 Canadian. Let me just fill out my information here because I went through this last time. And then shipping method. Okay, $30 American. So now we're up to $55 for a set of $24 test leads. And that is $55 American. So if I multiply that by 1.35, we're looking at $75 American. And then when they get here, because their only shipping options are to use a courier, like FedEx, I'll have to pay $35 on top of that for customs clearance fees. And then for the actual customs fees, I'll probably be paying like $10. So we're up to like over $100 for a set of, $25 test leads. $25 very good test leads. Don't get me wrong, but still $25 test leads. And so I reached out to them and I said, hey, love the product, really want a set. Is it possible for you to ship it to me by U.S. Postal Service? Because if it goes by U.S. Postal Service, it goes then to Canada Post, and then I only have to pay the amount of fees, which are just the taxes. So 13% on whatever, $30 $30 Canadian or $35 Canadian. Not all that bad. And they said, no, we only use courier. I said, okay, so is it possible to make an exception if I understand the risks? Because they listed a whole bunch of risks, a whole bunch of reasons why they don't do it. They said, we get a lot of lost packages, we get really long shipping times, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I said, if I am willing to accept those risks, which I am, could you do U.S. postal shipping for me? And they said, okay, we'll get back to you. So it took a little while. They had to go back and forth a little bit. They got more information from me and more information from their, shipping department. And finally, a few days ago, they sent me a PayPal invoice and I paid them. The total price was way lower. Here, I'll tell you how much I paid. And please don't bother them. They made an exception for me. Please don't bother them to do the same thing. Well, I guess I don't know, but whatever. Let me just make sure here. So it cost me $40 US instead of $55 US. And so we'll see how much it cost me at the border. But instead of costing me like 110 or 105 Canadian dollars, we're looking at under 50 Canadian dollars, I think. So let's go 40 times 1.35. Yeah, 55 Canadian dollars. So way more reasonable than the over 100 Canadian dollars that I have to pay. But that means I'm also getting a set of top quality test leads. And so the plan is to test all of my tests, so resistance and voltage. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference on voltage, but we'll see. But resistance and voltage with the leads that came with the cheap flukes, the ProbeMaster leads, and the I've got a set of regular fluke test leads, like regular decent quality ones from the Fluke 179 that a subscriber sent me. So I'm going to do all the tests over 3 times. On top of that, so that's 4 multimeters, each single test 3 times. On top of that, I'm going to bring out an old favorite. I'm going to bring my Kaiweets HT118A to see if, and also test it with the HT118A leads, the ProbeMaster leads, the cheap fluke, and the expensive fluke leads. And we're going to do a big sort of comparison and see if it makes any difference, or should you just get the Kaiweets multimeter in the first place? Because the Kaiweets multimeter, I'm going to pull it up here. I'm going to do .com for you American folks to get an idea. But if I Google Kaiweets on Amazon.com, the small one is $16 and the HT118A is $42. So cheaper than the 101. And so it might end up being cheaper to get just the Kaiweets in the first place. And if it has the same functions or better, you know, maybe it's just worth getting the Kaiweets. The only reason that I'm super interested in these cheap flukes is that even though they are meant for the Chinese market, they are still made by Fluke. And when Fluke puts a Cat 4 or a Cat 3 or both rating on their multimeters, you know you can trust them. The Kaiweets, even though the product is very high quality, I cannot be 100% sure if they respect the Cat 3 or Cat 4 safety certifications without doing independent testing myself, and I cannot buy the equipment for that. But that's the interesting part for me. In fact, I might reach out to Kaiweets and ask them for the test certifications to see if they would pass it, because at $42 US, actually it's kind of expensive, right? I think the Kaiweets used to be way cheaper, but I guess popularity happened. Yeah, so the HT118A is on Amazon Canada for $36. So maybe it's cheaper on another listing. But anyways, to get a multimeter at $37 to be Cat compliant, I'm just looking, it says, 600 volts Cat 4 and 1000 volts Cat 3. That can't be cheap to do. So maybe I'll reach out to them and see if they have any information on that before the video. So right now I'm waiting for the test leads from ProbeMasters to come in. Probably do a standalone video on the ProbeMaster test leads. But yeah, when I unboxed the Fluke multimeters, the cheap Flukes, the continuity buzzer was not latching and not quick. But I'm wondering if it's because of those really, really cheap leads that need, you need to break through that sort of, non-conductive corrosion layer or something. So we'll see. I don't know the answer because I haven't done it. But if you guys are interested, you go over to the live stream channel and subscribe so that you'll be in the know when I go live. And at some point, you might see it actually happen. Another great part about being live with all you folks in the chat is that I get to sort of share my thought process and get feedback on my thought process on making videos. One example of this is I have 2 gallium nitride chargers that I bought for my new laptop. One is a 65 watt from company Ugreen. The other one is 120 watt from a unknown company. The unknown one has 3 USB-C connections and 1 USB-A. The Ugreen has 2, or is it 1? I think it's 2 USB-Cs and 1 USB-A. And along the course of filming or deciding to film or setting up to film a YouTube video, taking a look at these chargers, kind of like a first look at the chargers and sort of trying to debunk their claims or, reinforce their claims, was that I have to hook them up to an electronic load. The problem is the 120 watt charger has 3 USB-Cs and 1 USB-A. That's 4 separate channels. And I only have 2 electronic loads. In fact, I have 1 electronic load that I can really use properly for this kind of testing, and another one which is a 600 watt load, which is a big pain in the butt to use on camera because the display is so dim. So I was debating just ordering 2 more electronic loads, right? So then I have the 3 electronic loads I can set side by side. We can do real testing, and then for the USB-A, I can just pop in just like a 2 amp load on it. The chat is like, yeah, do it. You should probably do it. That's probably going to make a better video. And so Whereas typically I would share this with my wife, for example, who is extremely supportive of what I do, but ultimately isn't really the target audience for these kinds of videos. She would probably push me to get the extra electronic loads, maybe, but not as decisively as my chat. My chat was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense. If you're going to test 3 different channels, you need 3 different loads, and it'd be really nice to have them side by side. And so we went together. I screen shared. We went on AliExpress. We found 2 more electronic loads, and now I just ordered them. So I do believe that sharing my process like this will end up in much better videos. And if you remember from a few podcasts back, the goal of my channel in 2024 is to grow in importance. I want it to be, I know it's very important for the people listening to this podcast. You're probably the second most dedicated folks around my orbit. The number 1 most dedicated would be for the live stream viewers, because those people are quite dedicated. Some of them are on my live stream for 5 hours when I did a 5-hour stream. So you guys are the most dedicated, and the podcast listeners are the second most. Or is it the Patreons who are the number 1? Anyways, however you want to slice that, it is nice to have hardcore fans give me input. And that input should equal better videos. Better videos should equal a broader reach, a bigger reach, and that should equal more importance. I am not failing my bet with another maker this year. I must work on it. So that's been good too. I think we're at a good point in the podcast to talk about another thing that I did live on stream, which took a way longer time than I ever expected, and that's to do the latest project on PCBWay. And in fact, I should just jump right into the PCBWay ad real quick to let you guys know that PCBWay is probably the simplest way to have PCBs manufactured in the comfort of your own home, because you just go on PCBWay.com, go quick order PCBs, upload the Gerber file, select how many you need, select the shipping, which I have just checked. The cheapest shipping cost for 10 PCBs, I think it was $11 US, which is actually quite reasonable. And for 10 PCBs, I'm not sure if you can always get 10, but my 80 or was it 90 millimeter by 90 millimeter PCBs, I got 10 of, and it was only $5 plus the $11 shipping. So it's $16 for 10 PCBs in your hand, $1.60 per PCB shipped US dollars. You can go up to 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters and you still get $5. In principle, it should only be for 5, but definitely once you upload your Gerber, go take a look and see if you can do 10. Sometimes the price doesn't change. It's still $5. And so go at it if you need 10. The other cool thing is they do 3D printing, they do CNC manufacturing, they do sheet metal bending, they do all sorts of stuff. And so go to PCBWay.com using the link in my description to get your PCB or CNC journey started. So ad aside, my audience, live audience, watched me do basically the whole conception of a PCBWay project. So I talked about on here a couple podcasts back how I wanted to make a mobile trailer light tester. And the first PCB for that is completely finished thanks to the live stream. And it took a longer time than I thought. So the whole goal here is to have an ESP32. It's going to eventually run a web interface, but I think at first just have some push buttons where you can plug into a trailer, like a regular boat or utility trailer, a 4-pin or a 7-pin, doesn't matter. And you'll be able to toggle on and off each channel. And so you can make sure that all your lights are working. How many trailers you see on the road without working lights, right? So as part of my other work as a mechanic, I'm doing a lot of work on a fleet now that includes trailers. So we need a trailer tester. So that's what I'm designing. What was so difficult is the design challenges that I imposed on myself. One of those design challenges is to use automotive components, so that is relays, and have something that is field repairable. Because you and I know that if you're a hobbyist, repairable means one thing for us, and it means something else for other people entirely. You and I can desolder a transistor from a board, right? And then solder in a new transistor. But it's not practical as a mobile mechanic. So the stuff that is sort of high wearing in my design needed to be replaceable with stuff you can get that day, right? Like right there, right then and there. So I decided to use these small relays, automotive relays, and I decided to use circuit breakers instead of fuses. I kind of wish I went with fuses, but I think the circuit breakers are a novel idea, so that's what I ordered, and that's what I have. And so I had to design footprints for these female spade terminals to go into the PCB, but in the shape of the relay terminals and also in the shape of the breakers. And then I had to fit all of this once the footprints were done. So I made the footprints live as well. Then I had to fit all of it onto the PCB and, route the tracks and all that. I've done all this on live stream. So you can actually go, I think the live stream, I started adding numbers to the live stream so that people who have already seen, caught the live streams, you can quickly see in the title which numbers you've seen and which you haven't. So I think this is live stream number 5. But I went from, designing a driver to drive automotive relays. I selected the components for that with what I had in stock. So I'm using PC817 optocouplers so that the inductive spike from the relays doesn't damage the transistors. I used I think it's 2N2907 transistors, PNP transistors, to drive the relays. And I used a SOT323 package, so SMD, very small. I put in LEDs for both the signal side from the ESP32 and for the output side of the optocoupler for diagnostic purposes. And it turned out that even using these tiny components, it was just a little too big. So what we realized together, the chat and I, is that I could actually put them underneath of the circuit breakers. There was enough space underneath the circuit breakers to fit all those components. So I made an ultra compact design and managed to get 5 channels. So left brake, right brake, park lights, reverse lights, and the auxiliary 12 volts, plus another channel with a P-channel MOSFET to drive trailer brakes at a PWM frequency onto this 90 by 90 PCB with a whole bunch of screw terminals for the inputs and outputs. And yeah, we got it all done. It took 3-4 hours, something like that. It took a long time to make, but it is now made. It's not ordered yet. I'm going to order them probably tonight. And so I should expect them to be here next week. But the live audience will then be coming along with me as I solder it together and make sure it works. And then they'll see the filming of the video. And, they'll be part of all this. And, if you want to be part of all this, make sure to check the link in the description. But it's really cool being able to chat with you guys, to exist with you guys while I am, quote unquote, busy working, right? Because YouTube has become an income for me, a much needed income for me, especially with my contracts at the college not being constant. And so you guys are just there with me while I'm at work, which has been pretty awesome. Just a small aside, if the podcast ends up being a little bit shorter today, it'll be because my voice is wrecked, because I have actually been streaming all these hours, so it's a little crazy. Let's see what else I've been up to, though. So another thing I have filmed is a video on the WowStick 1F Plus Pro. So in case you guys don't know this, but you know, if you're sort of watching makery type videos, you've probably seen this. This is a little electric screwdriver, which is small. It's about twice or three times the diameter of a pencil, and it's about 1.5 times the length of a pencil. And it takes these 4mm screwdriver bits. This was just a little Christmas present from me to me, basically to sort of, look back on 2023. And I figured I could use some tools and maybe it'll make a good video, So I ordered myself one. Not very expensive. It was maybe like $50, $55, something like that, Canadian. And took a look at it. And I'll tell you, it's actually quite impressive what you get for the money. It's fairly torquey. It's not super torquey. It's a precision driver. It's not really made for putting a lot of force onto it. But the Fluke 179 backing came apart with the relatively big screws and the chewy plastic that it's screwed into by using the quote-unquote ratcheting function, where you stall the motor and you crank it over and then go back and forth with it. You can see it in the video when it releases. It's on Patreon at the moment. But it's fairly nice. There's just a couple things I don't like. The base is kind of trash. So the base makes it look like a quote-unquote, Hitachi magic wand type device. It's absolute garbage. It's rounded at the bottom. So it doesn't even have like a really stable base. It is heavy, but it's not very stable. And where the screwdriver goes in is really tapered, so it doesn't hold the screwdriver particularly straight. So I do trash on it in the video for sure. The other thing is it comes with a box, like a case, but the case doesn't latch or snap together or anything. It just kind of sits one on top of each other. And it doesn't, there's like a crack, like it doesn't even like fit together well. And the sort of like there's semicircles on the top. The semicircles aren't even the right radius for either the screwdriver or the bit sets, which I don't really get. And all the bits you get are in like these cylinders, and you have to like pull the whole thing apart and then pick your bit and then put the whole thing back in the cylinder. That doesn't work for me. I'll have to 3D print something. Likely I'll do it on, I'll design something on a live stream. But yeah, it doesn't work for me. So those things aside, the rest of it is pretty nice. You get quite a big selection of bits. You get a couple of cell phone sort of tools, like a suction cup and a little like guitar pick type thing to pry things apart. You get pretty much all the bits you need. I think up to a Phillips number 2, which for a precision driver is pretty nice to see. You even get these like deeper reach bits, which I was kind of worried that I wouldn't be able to reach into, pockets to get stuff, but it seems to work pretty well. So I 3D printed, actually I designed and 3D printed on stream a new holder that glues onto onto the backing. And yeah, I just replaced the crappy base with that. So I just glued this thing onto my background, which is pretty nice to do. And I've used it a couple times. Actually, I really like it. The only thing next is I'm going to have to figure out the bit storage because, yeah, the bit storage is absolutely horrid. So there's that. Another thing is I looked at the JunkTek, JUNCTEK, KG110F Smart Shunt. So this is kind of like a, just think about how an electronic load would work if it didn't have a load. So this is just the shunt portion, and typically used in solar applications, but could be used for whatever. But this will, measure the current going out of your power source and coming back into your power source. So it's a bidirectional shunt, and it does calculations like remaining capacity and how many, how much time the loads have been on. and how much longer until your battery is depleted based on the capacity and all sorts of things like that. So it gave that a test, and that gave me another idea for another project, which I've ordered parts, which I will do live again. Is I do have a couple electronic loads, but I also like some dumb loads, right? Some just resistive loads. So I'm building a load box in the future as well. So yeah, the electronic shunt is going to be nice, especially when it's going to be time to do testing on the boat, when I have my lithium batteries all set up and going for a ride on the boat, and when I have my solar array set up as well. So I think this shunt will live sort of here in the basement near my battery pack, which I will build at some point, probably on a live stream. And it'll let me know, how the solar is working, how much current we're taking out of the battery for powering loads or whatever. But that seems to be pretty nice. And I also I made a pun in the title, which is shunt the front door, because it's it's an electronic shunt, a smart shunt. Another thing was these EDC flashlights. A company called Boruit, Boruit. The model is a V15. They're called EDC flashlights. They're everyday carries. So they're about credit card size flashlights with massive lumen output. I think in turbo mode it's like 1200 lumens. And they're waterproof. They have a massive battery inside, which is USB-C rechargeable. And the reason I got them is for two reasons. One, for my automotive profession, always looking to put light in places. I can't see shit. And these things, they have a way to put it on your baseball hat, which I always wear a hat. So that'll be kind of nice. And they have a giant magnet on the bottom. And the other thing is, legally here in Canada, in order to do boating on on anything that's powered, so trolling motor included, you need a couple things with you, and one of those things is a waterproof flashlight. And I don't want to deal with charging batteries, finding batteries, making sure all these kinds of things. I just want to keep this flashlight in the car, charge it by USB-C, which I have in my car anyways, and this will be with me at all times. So I paid up for these things. They're kind of expensive. They were, I think, they're on sale for about 25 Canadian dollars each. So I paid $50 for two of them. But I'm actually quite happy with the quality of them, and the fact that if you use it on low power, the battery lasts forever. Also, it's lithium ion, so the self-discharge is going to be very minor. If I don't end up using it on the boat, like I just have it with me for, legal reasons. If I don't end up using it, then the fact that it has such a massive battery means that it'll last a very long time. I don't have to worry about recharging it probably all summer. And so that is the plan with that. Another thing that I filmed was a USB PD trigger PCB. So in case some of you don't know, USB USB-C chargers typically have a range of voltage they have available to them. So 5 volts, 9 volts, 12 volts, 15 and 20 volts. And like if you're charging your laptop, for example, through USB-C, your laptop will tell the charger that it wants 20 volts. And then the charger will provide 20 volts and usually up to 5 or 6 amps, which gives you the 100, 120 watt maximums on them. But you can get a little PCB that does the same thing. There's a little chip on the back, and then you get a couple dip switches, and that gives you access, at least here from what I've tested, up to 5 amps or from my chargers, up to 5 amps at 20 volts. Meaning you can use something like a TS100 battery-powered soldering iron with USB PD. And so one of the things that I want to sort of gift to my boss, the mechanics boss, is a little power supply, which is another video I have to film, which is a XD5008 power supply. I don't know. It's a little DC-DC thing. because he uses DeWalt batteries to power everything, which are like 24 volts, and automotive electronics, when you're trying to test them, motors and stuff, they run on 12 volts. So I'm going to gift him a little power supply. But in there, I also want to put a little USB PD module, which is another thing I'm testing, so that we can power soldering irons or all sorts of things from USB PD. So these are all things that are coming around for full circle, right? My professional life is kind of like colliding with my YouTubing life, and hopefully showing you some really cool stuff that you can buy for really inexpensive on AliExpress. So those USB PD triggers are like $1 each. And so you can use your existing laptop charger in order to, power a TS100, for example. So imagine how compact things can be if you use that for your power needs. I think the final thing we filmed, the final thing I edited, but this was also filmed on the live stream, but before Christmas, was binding posts. So I don't know if you guys have seen the price recently of binding posts, but not the little type that receives a 4mm banana. Those are fairly inexpensive, but the type that you would connect a battery to. It's basically a threaded rod with a couple nuts and a little bit of Bakelite plastic, and they are binding posts. They just don't take a 4mm banana on the top. But those things are hellishly expensive for what they are. I mean, you take them apart and they're literally just a threaded rod, a couple nuts, and a couple pieces of plastic. So I decided to design and 3D print my own. And it was really awesome to see the reception that video had, because this is one of the videos that I edited recently that I put live. There's going to be another one in a couple days. I haven't decided if Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays are the best day to release videos yet. But the reception has been pretty good, sitting at just over 1,000 views a couple days later, which is really nice to see. So people are loving it. A couple of you had some things to say about the fact that it doesn't have protection to short against the chassis. But what I say is that all the design files are out there, so you can load the STL into your favorite CAD software and modify it however you want. I mean, this is the great part about open source. If there's a feature on something that is open source that you want and is not there, then you can just add it yourself, which is great. So yeah, all the files are there, and these things are super useful. This was actually something I needed when I was designing sort of things for my lithium battery bank. I wanted some binding posts, and it had to hold down a breaker, and I wasn't able to get the correct length out of it. Didn't fit, and it was too thick. So yeah, I just made my own. And what's nice is that when you buy the materials to make, let's say, 4 of these, you have enough materials. You pay the same cost as about 4 of these, and you have enough materials to make like 12. And so, yeah, your initial cost is a bit higher, but you get way more than you need, which means that you can just keep making them and keep having stuff in stock. So it's actually perfect for me. And I decided to buy brass hardware because brass is corrosion resistant. It still has decent electrical conductance capabilities. But if you want to go all out, you can get tinned copper threaded rods, and your price will go up a bit, but then your electrical conductivity goes up as well. So really, I love these kinds of things because it means the choice is in your hands. You can set yourself up however you want and not have to worry about what my design considerations were. So check out that video if you're interested. And that brings me to a couple of improvements I'm going to do to the live streams in order to make it a little bit more enjoyable for the people watching and a little bit more, I hesitate to say professional, but a little bit more, production value to what I'm doing. So let's not forget that the number one point of me doing live streams is to be able to hang out and chat with you folks while I work, right? This is my work. I'm there working on bringing you guys videos and content for you guys to watch. So that'll be the number one goal, but it has become to a point where sometimes there is so much chat that I can't like look over all the way to my computer from my workbench and follow the conversation. There's just too much happening. So this is a good thing. This is suffering from success, right? This is not a bad thing at all. But that means that I'm now probably going to install a monitor on or near my workbench, because it seems to be abundantly clear that the live streams are being enjoyed, which is great, which means more people are coming in, which is also great, which just means I need a little bit more, space for me to be able to respond and stuff. The other thing is I do have an extra webcam. You guys, the live stream is filmed from a webcam, which is right next to my regular camera. So it's a very similar angle to the YouTube channel, but I do have an extra webcam. And often while I'm streaming, I'll have a 3D printing, and people don't get to see the progress on the 3D print. So I think the next goal is going to be to set up a second camera, probably using the webcam, on the 3D printer so you guys can check the progress of the 3D print. Eventually, however, I do want to get my sort of quote unquote dirty area, the dirtier area of my workshop, tidied up, organized, and build some workbenches in there. And I want to have you guys along in the dirty workshop where I do three things probably. One is upgrade the 3D printers I have here, because the fleet of 3D printers that I have are all trash. Every single one of them. The Tronxy X3A prints pretty well, but it's still using 8-bit control board. It has loud stepper motor drivers. It uses a weird version of Marlin, which has been tuned by Tronxy, but back in like 2015 type thing. I did upgrade the chassis rigidity, but it's just not enough. Oh, and it runs on 12 volts, so it's actually fairly low powered. So it's going to be time to modernize that one, to put a touch probe so I can have a better bed surface and all sorts of things like that need to be done. And I don't have space to do it underneath my camera. So the dirty workshop will be where I'm going to get that done. I also have a Tronxy X5SA, which I bought used for very little money, if some of you remember, which prints all crooked. Electronics, again, are pretty trash, lacking features. I think it has silent stepper drivers at least, but it has like single pulley extruder. It has a non-all metal hot end. So I'm going to upgrade that one to linear rails. Already have all the parts for this. And so I'm going to upgrade it to a decent control board as well. Again, it's bigger than the X3A, so it's going to go in the dirty section. Then the other one is the Sheen Winnie Panther. I don't, you know what? I have no idea what this printer is. So far it's working. It needs the extruder looked at because it's making noise. So I might do that on a live stream. But like in the non-dirty area of the shop. But otherwise, I'll have to present it to you guys and see what we do with it, because I think the kinematics are nice. Everything's good, but the control board is pretty trash, and the wiring for the hotbed is very thin. It gets hot, like the wires get hot. But the other thing I want to do in the dirty area is rebuild my Volvo's transmission. So I don't think I talked about it on the podcast yet, but shortly after I was driving around with the second replacement transmission in my Volvo. So, I had the original one, then got a used one. That used one started slipping like crazy, or was always slipping like crazy. Then I put a second used one. I had to take it out. I had to exchange it for a second used one. That one just decided to give up the ghost on the way home. So I managed to get it home, and now it's been just parked on my lawn, actually, because I have not enough parking spots, and my boss wants me to take the company pickup truck, which I wasn't a fan of because it's big and it has a lot of tools in it, so that's a lot of kind of liability, and I don't have any space at home. So anyways, I parked the Volvo on the lawn, and so it's going to be there at least for the winter. Now, I have ordered the parts to rebuild my original transmission, and I need to drag that's like 120 pound or 150 pound. I don't know how heavy it is. Heavy. I have to drag my transmission into the basement, into the dirty workshop area, and rebuild the transmission. There's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It needs to get done. And so that might be something I'm also doing on a live stream. We'll see how well it goes. I'm not guaranteeing anything. Also, don't forget that it's quite a challenge for me to stay out of shot when I'm doing these things. And when I'm wrestling a really heavy transmission, I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to be able to position myself in order to not be seen. Also, I don't know how I'm going to control the stream from a totally different room. Still in my basement, but a different room. So that one's not a guarantee, but definitely I need a better spot to film bigger stuff. And so the workshop sort of rehab needs to happen. It's just I'm not sure when and how, what it's going to look like when it's done, but it needs to get done. And so, yeah, that's another thing I'm pretty excited about. And once that workshop is ready, the size of projects that I'll be able to do won't be so limited by my tiny little workbench. It'll be much bigger workbench space. We'll be able to spend a lot more time working on much bigger things. And the whole goal for sort of 3D printing, ever since I picked up the first 3D printer, is to 3D print some big stuff. And so to have enough space to assemble really big items means that I'll be able to design really big things. And speaking of big items and 3D printing, I am almost completely convinced that this year I am buying a Voron 2.4. So the plan is going to be to order either a Cybor, a Formbot, or a Fysetec. Anyways, Fysetc, Fysetec, Formbot, Voron 2.4 kit, the 350 millimeters by 350 millimeters by 350 millimeters, so the big boy. And that will require a lot of space to assemble. And so refurbing the workshop will be needed for that. Now, my workshop is completely cluttered, so I don't know where all the stuff is going to go. I've already started, I bought a couple of shelves, so I'm going to put up shelves so I can store a bit more stuff. But yeah, this is going to be a giant undertaking, and it'll probably require quite a bit of money because lumber is expensive, and so are the sort of electronics I need, studio lighting and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to embark on that journey, and especially embark on it, I think, with more fervor, because I'll often come down to my workshop and work on stuff a little bit and then have a seat and watch a little bit of YouTube, and then all of a sudden hours have passed watching YouTube. But when I schedule a stream, I get to, I have to hold by my word. If I say I'm going to stream at 2 o'clock, I need to make sure I get done what I need to get done to be able to stream at 2 o'clock. And so being responsible to my loyal viewers is really helping me get more stuff done. And more stuff done means more videos. More videos means more channel importance. Here's hoping. And so that's the end of the kind of electronics-y type stuff. But I do want to give you guys a little bit of an update of what's going on in my non-YouTube life, because a few of you have reached out and told me not to neglect to let you guys know what's going on in my regular life, because that is a part of why some of you listen to the podcast. So very slight update on that. So I haven't been doing too much, except for, focusing on the channel, doing more live stream. I did take some time off during the holidays to relax a little bit, which was very nice. Thankfully, I find live streaming pretty relaxed. Now, work is starting to pick up. So I'm probably going to be working with at my mechanics job 3 days a week, something like that, 2 to 3 days a week. Also, one of my colleagues at the college has to get a surgery, and so I'm going to be filling in his hours not as a professor. I don't think he had any professor hours, but as the sort of shop tech. So I might be doing more hours doing that come February, but they're not like it's probably going to be in the about $20 an hour type thing. It's not really like a skilled position, so it's not going to be very much, but it is very nice to have a college contract just to breathe the same air as the apprentices that come through there. I love teaching. I love being in that environment. So I'm quite happy to be back there. So that's going to happen sometime in February. We'll see how many days a week. Probably going to be 1 or 2 days a week. So not very often. And if so, the stream schedule probably won't slow down because I am enjoying streaming. I'll probably do evenings of streaming or weekends streams a little bit more. But I'm quite enjoying getting stuff done, so that won't change very much. And there's also the possibility, that I use college stuff, like not the time that I'm paid, but I might be able to use some of the equipment there to back up a little bit of my YouTube channels and or to work on the Dan Fixes Cars YouTube channel, because since I'm live streaming a lot, I'm getting a lot more done, and the more I get done, the more I feel like I want to boost the Dan Fixes Cars channel, because I think that is just, it's right in my wheelhouse, and I think I have something to add to that. Oh shoot, I forgot to mention, I also have been working on my website, so I actually spent quite a bit of time today. So today's the 17th, as I record this. I've had some time today to work on my website, and so actually one of the videos that is now just for Patreon patrons, if you go onto my website, simpleelectronics.ca, and then you click on articles, there should be an article there about the USB PD trigger, and in that article is the link to my video. So those of you who listen sort of all the way to the end of this podcast will get sort of like a freebie video, so you can click through the link. But that's kind of the goal going forward, is going to be to do more content for my website. Not everyone learns the same way, and not all information is best presented via video. So the number one focus is always going to be the video. The video is kind of like where I'm going to concentrate the most of my efforts. But some of the things, like especially the Fluke Roundup, which is going to be quite, data intensive, is going to be well served by a post on a website. So the goal going forward is to get back used to doing website articles. And so I will be posting stuff like graphs and charts and sort of tables is a lot easier to show on the website. So when it makes sense to, I want to make more content for the website, and especially like tutorial content, because not everyone, understands English properly, understands my inflection, verbiage. Not everyone has a super good internet connection where you can watch high quality video. So the plan is for tutorial content and for, sort of data appropriate type content is going to be to have the website articles. And I'm hoping to get into a groove where instead of staying up late watching YouTube, I go to bed, and in bed I use my new laptop, because it's a work laptop, to do articles. So we'll see how long that lasts. But at the moment, my favorite podcast, it's now 3:21 p.m. My favorite podcast is about half an hour from starting. So I need to get this edited and go and watch the H3H3 podcast. Nothing to do with electronics, but very entertaining. So thanks everyone for listening. It really does mean a lot to me that a lot of you listen to the podcast every 2 weeks. And it's for you folks that I keep making this stuff. So I really appreciate you, but I would love for you to come say hi on one of the live streams. Thanks for watching, everyone.